Jones was intubated in the hospital, and when he regained consciousness, his tongue was so swollen he couldn't.
The country's public health establishment has tortured your children for 8 months for no apparent reason. That happened. That story has not received a lot of coverage, but it's been confirmed tonight. The authorities have admitted it. 60 million American children languishing in their rooms since spring, sitting in front of screens, learning nothing, isolated from human contact, in many cases driven to mental illness. We can now report there was no reason for any of that. The experts were wrong. They had no idea what they were doing. But the most amazing part, and this really is the headline of the story, is that they knew they were wrong when they did it, but they kept lying about it even as American children began to kill themselves. On Sunday in New York, city officials all but admitted this. They announced they're reopening elementary schools. Those are the same schools that they closed fewer than 2 weeks ago. Now, from a medical standpoint, nothing has changed. New York didn't get an early shipment of the Pfizer vaccine. There wasn't some groundbreaking new research paper that revolutionized our understanding of the coronavirus. Nothing like that at all. In fact, parents simply had enough. And they forced Bill de Blasio to admit the obvious. This virus is not a threat to children. As de Blasio put it in that weird euphemistic way that dumb people speak, quote, "We know that the health realities for the youngest kids are the most favorable." Well, yes, we do know that. We've known it for a long time. We knew it when Bill de Blasio shut down New York schools. And Tony Fauci knew it too, though he didn't say anything about it. Now he's decided to say something about it, 8 months late. Here's Anthony Fauci on Sunday. And as you watch this, keep in mind that this man on the screen is leading our response, America's response, to the coronavirus.
Close the bars and keep the schools open is what we really say. Obviously, you don't have one size fits all, but as I said in the past, and as you accurately quoted me, the default position should be to try as best as possible within reason to keep the children in school or to get them back to school. If you look at the data, the spread among children and from children is not really very big at all, not like one would have suspected.
Oh, I've always said you should keep the schools open, says the man in charge of America's coronavirus response to a nation whose schools have been closed for months. Right, yeah, I always said that. Check the tape. Because, quote, if you look at the data, says Anthony Fauci. But wait a second. Why is this just now occurring to Tony Fauci? Isn't this Fauci's entire job to, quote, look at the data? Yes, it is. And yet somehow he never thought to do that. That's our corona czar. Over the summer, when the data looked the same as they do tonight, Fauci explained that he couldn't really say if kids should be allowed to go to school. It was, quote, complicated. Except it wasn't complicated. It wasn't complicated then. It's not complicated now. In April, many months ago, a study by the Journal of the American Medical Association found that school-aged children who get the coronavirus, quote, develop only mild symptoms and typically recover within 2 weeks. Months later, same story. In June, a study in The Lancet affirmed this, quote, COVID-19 is generally a mild disease in children, including in infants. Other studies found the exact same thing. No study has found anything but that. There was never much question about it. But if you're looking for more evidence, check the death rates. Those are publicly available. Deaths are not hard to track. Consider the state of New Jersey. That's one of the states hit hardest by the coronavirus. So far, in New Jersey, not a single school-aged child has died from the coronavirus. Not one. Many children have died from car accidents and fires and drug ODs and suicide. None have died from COVID-19. In California, the biggest state in the United States, 40 million people live there. A total of 2 people under the age of 18 have died from the coronavirus. 2. The numbers nationwide, according to the latest CDC numbers, 123 Americans under the age of 18 have died from the coronavirus. 123 out of 350 million. We shut the schools anyway, crushing millions of kids, affecting their futures in ways we can't even understand at this point, but it's clear it's bad. Really bad in some cases. So the question is, why did we do this? And the answer is to save the teachers. The teachers' unions pushed this, and their servants in the Democratic Party obeyed. They're the single largest donors to the Democratic Party, so of course they did. So unionized teachers get to stay home collecting checks for their 9-month-a-year jobs because classrooms are just too dangerous. It's like the Battle of the Bulge 5 days a week. And that's exactly what they've done. But what do the data say about this? Well, for teachers under the age of 50, and that's the vast majority of them, the odds of surviving a coronavirus infection are roughly 99.98%. But we should tell you that for teachers under 70, the risk of dying escalates to a terrifying 99.5% chance of survival. And by the way, if teachers do get sick, it likely won't be from teaching. Children appear not to spread the coronavirus, certainly not effectively. We've known this for a long time. Back in May, researchers in Europe found, quote, children do not appear to be drivers of transmission. And we argue that reopening schools should be considered safe, accompanied by certain measures. Again, none of this is new. Tony Fauci, the data guy, knew it at the time. And so did anyone in the news media who could read, which is still most of them. And yet they kept lying about it, all of them. In July, here's just one example, a panel of physicians and experts on infectious disease went on television to explain that going to school isn't dangerous for anyone. They would send their own kids. Watch the news anchor's reaction.
Would you let your kids go back to school?
I will. My kids are looking forward to it.
Yes. Period. Absolutely.
Absolutely. As much as I can.
Without a hesitation.
Without a hesitation, yes.
I have no concerns about sending my child to school in the fall.
I would let my kids go back to school.
Dr. John Torres, NBC News.